I want for our audience your best Ben Johnson locker room story that you can share with us, because I really think people want to get some insight into their new head coach.
Man, Ben, now funny locker room stories. I don't know about any funny, man. Ben is a pretty serious, locked in dude, and he's like that constantly. Ben, every blue moon, Ben a crack one of those kind of evil smiles, if you will, but kind of the best experience that I have and that I can remember, and we kind of saw a little bit in preseason is, when you see guys rolling and when Ben Johnson's teams, for us, it was the offense playing well. When you see Ben Johnson flexing on the sideline, it's a good Sunday. For us, I specifically remember Seattle Seahawks game. I think they brought a blitz zero, and we had some sort of a deep cross concept called, and we scored. It was like a 70-yard touchdown to Jamison Williamson. And Ben was flexing hard, man, and that was pretty early in the season. So I was not, I had just kind of got to Chicago, and seeing that energy from Ben on the sideline as a coordinator, to see how serious he took those chess matches versus defensive coordinators, man, it was phenomenal and truly awesome to see, man. To have a coach who's that locked in, very similar to a player. You see a player get a first down, get a touchdown, they do their celebrations. When Ben Johnson's dialing up, some blitz zero beaters and some beaters on third down, man, he gets pretty turned up, and it's pretty exciting to see as a player.
Okay, I love that you said that, because here's what we've been getting from the Bears players, Alan. This sense that they don't almost know what to make of Ben Johnson because he is so serious. So he doesn't really crack the jokes, and he is serious as you're describing. Is he scary? Because they're making him sound kind of scary.
Listen, man, Ben is one of those guys, he's kind of like Dr. Jekyll's a little bit, he has that kind of mad scientist feel to him. But I'll say this, for those guys, and you can kind of see and hear in the media as well, man, as those guys are, I don't even want to say coming around to Ben, but as they continue to learn and understand Ben, man, you have such a great appreciation with, because he pushes the guys extremely hard, man. But, many different instances last season, what I see him, love up the players, if it's, something that may not go right, or, him having to, stay after to talk to guys, Ben also has that ability and has that connection for his players, because when you get into a meeting after game day, just as much as I saw Ben tell us that we have to play better as a group, I've also saw Ben after the Tampa Bay game last year in Detroit. Ben said that he didn't feel like he had a big enough plan for us going into the red zone in Tampa game, and he said, he told us as players, I'll take full accountability for that, and that will never happen again. So when you have a coach who not only holds his players to such a high standard, but also himself to such a high standard as a player, man, you can't do anything except respect it to the ultimate, amount, just as far as, him as a coach. He's a much respected coach.
Let me ask you this. We're talking to former Bears wide receiver Allen Robinson. He is the host of the Press Release podcast. Go seek it out. Give it a listen. He does it with Prince Abukamara, both part of what was really just a great 2018 season until it wasn't a great 2018 season. And we might get a little bit nostalgic on that here in just a little bit. Or we could do it right now if you'd like.
Sounds like you want to do it right now.
Even when you say that, whenever I hear 2018, I literally hear of two thuds.
Oh, wow. I'm sorry, man.
Listen,
good job, Gertie.
It's so funny. Whenever I hear that sound of a kick hitting the upright, for whatever reason, I think of that game in particular, because it was just, the stadium was almost silent. Obviously, it's the last play of the game. It's a game-winning moment, so the stadium is silent. And when you hear a cold football hit the crossbar, it's such a loud sound.
It's like boing, boing, boing.
Literally. Granted, it's not as loud as lightning, but it has the same weight in it. As far as thunder, excuse me, it's not the same sound as thunder. But it has the same weight when you hear that ball hit the bar in that moment, and then and then hit the crossbar. So
It was
Yeah,
that's something I
I
definitely
apologize for Mark. He likes to invite guests on and traumatize them.
I feel like Alan needed to talk about this. I feel like this is a therapy session here right now. Because honestly, Alan, that's every single Bears fan. There was a preseason game last week where Cairo Santos hit the bar, and everybody's tweeting doink, 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 doink. Not double doink,
Literally.
but it was just doink. So there is a certain trauma that has been instilled in Bears fans, and obviously it's still in you. Dude, I was covering the sidelines for you guys, Alan. So I was down there. It was just like you guys were just frozen. Like nobody really said anything. Because you're powerless. You're so powerless over the moment with 64,000 fans jacked up. Everybody thinking the Bears are going to advance onto the second round of the playoffs, and then that happens. It just was it was harsh, man.
Definitely. Obviously playing 4 years in Chicago, but I do feel that myself and the fans, we are a little bit trauma bonded, from
Yes.
just some of those experience, that one in particular.
Trauma bond. There's one more question about 2018 or that era, and then we'll move on to the now. We'll talk about the Bears wide receivers with you, more on Ben Johnson. But the last question that I will ask you about is Mitch Trubisky, because you did have unbelievable chemistry with Trubisky. What happened, and do you think he got a fair chance in Chicago?
Fair, I would say nothing in the league as far as opportunities are fair, across the board, so that's so tough to say. If you're coming into NFL and expecting a fair opportunity or fair anything, if you will, then you're doing yourself a disservice. But do I think that he should have gained, enough leash to maybe have another year? I would say so, and I would say I think something that Mitch did very well was Mitch had the communication and Mitch had the chemistry with the players as a group. Going into my last year in Chicago, I do think that, Mitch had the room as far as having the connection with Tariq Cohen, having the connection with Anthony Miller and myself and some other guys, David Montgomery.
Yeah.
Cole Kmet, we had the chemistry to whereas, another offseason may have been able for us to improve that much more to be able to, get to the playoffs again and maybe actually make some noise in the playoffs. Because for us, it wasn't that we were trying to become a team that's, trying to get into the playoffs. We made the playoffs 2 times in those 4 years, 3 years with Mitch, 2 times in 3 years. So for us, it just was about now making some noise in the playoffs. And I think having another offseason under our belt, I think that would have been more of a possibility, rather than kind of starting over and there was a lot of moving parts.
Allen Robinson joining us here on the Rahimi Harris Show with Mark Grody and for later, the 11-year NFL wide receiver, of course, spending time with the Bears, as Grody so accurately pointed out, from 2018 to 2021. I'm so curious as to your thoughts on the Bears receiver room right now, because I'm just trying to figure out, there's only one football, Allen. Who's getting the ball and how much when you talk about all the talent they have in that receiving room right now, plus the tight ends, of course?
The number one thing for that entire offense really this year, a theme will probably be sacrifice. And again, I saw that a lot in Detroit last year with the amount of weapons that we had in Detroit. Obviously, Jamison Williams could have got the ball more. Jahmyr Gibbs could have got the ball more. David Montgomery could have got the ball more. Sam Laporta could have got the ball more. But when you have those are good problems to have, and I think that Chicago, with some of the weapons that they have, Cole Kmet, drafting a rookie tight end who's very talented, bringing in Luther Burden, who's another talented rookie, but also having Olamide Zaccheaus and DJ Moore, Rome Odunze, having such a deep skill position group, guys can't get frustrated and guys have to keep the main thing, which is being able to win games, because they all will have the opportunities. But there will be instances and matchups and games where somebody may get the short end of the stick when it comes to targets and opportunities. But, you have to stay locked in, because when you're in a situation and you have Ben Johnson as your coach, a guy who's coming in, wanting and hoping to take this team to the next level, you're looking to play, 20 plus games this season. So you have to be ready to mentally be along for the ride, have that mental that mental stamina as you go throughout the course of the season. You have to ride the ebbs and flows of opportunity and always stay ready for yours.
I know there's no way you could have seen the full work put in last year by Caleb Williams in all 17 games, but you did see him close up at least in a couple of games against Detroit. What do you think of Caleb Williams, and can he still be a great quarterback in the NFL?
Definitely. Again, for whatever reason, and I think that it's a little bit tough because it's the city of Chicago and they haven't had that, guy come in and have that first year success. When I say first year success, I mean very, very high success like a Jaden Daniels. But I don't think that people should, be at all down on the rookie season that he had. He has some ebbs and flows, did a lot of good things, did a lot of things that need improvement as well. But when it comes to just being a rookie, having some of the moving parts, obviously him learning some different things. I believe they made a coordinator change. Obviously they fired a coach and so on and so forth. So, doing different things like that throughout the course of the season is always tough. So with what he had to take on, I don't think that Bears fans should be discouraged at all. Again, it's a rookie season. He has to grow, he has to learn, he has to continue to polish his game to figure out, okay, after you go back after a rookie season and evaluate your own film, what were my strengths this year? What were my weaknesses? What are things that I have to totally get rid of? And having a whole course of an offseason to be able to evaluate that, I think should be extremely encouraging for Bears fans, seeing, just what he was able to do last year in a pretty revolving door kind of situation when it came to things that were moving within the organization.
Yeah. I mean, I think this quarterback is in the best position that a Bears quarterback has been in a long time to be developed because of the coaching staff, because of the players around him as well. But Alan, you're obviously very well aware of Bears history and the quarterbacks. I mean, you kind of indicated it in your answer there. Do you have a theory on why quarterback play has just been quarterback play has just been so hard to come by in the city of Chicago? Do you have a theory?
I don't have a theory, but to be honest, man, quarterback, sometimes that position is hard for a lot of different cases. As a person who grew up a Detroit fan, my entire childhood, was struggles at the quarterback position and other positions, and now obviously they have Jared Goff as their guy and they've been able to have success over the past few years. But before Matthew Stafford, it was Joey Harrington, John Kitna, you know what I'm saying? So just to kind of give an example, the same again with Minnesota, they were able to kind of get, Brett Favre at that point in time. But once after Dante Culpepper, you had Brad Johnson, Gus Frerotte, you had a lot of different guys. And, it's not always easy to be able to do that. Some teams kind of, find a solid, half a decade or so that when they get a guy to be able to truly compete and contend, but I think the Bears where they're at right now, is in a very good position. Obviously, they have a very high touted quarterback that they drafted a year ago who's now going into his second year. And, and he's a Cali kid, so even as he kind of, playing in Cali and coming from USC, being able to get adjusted to playing in the Midwest and so on and so forth. Again, I think it's small tricks of the trade sometimes that can take a player to the next level, especially when you're talking about that position.
Alan, I love talking to you. I maybe at some point in time, you and I could just do the full deep dive on 2018 because,
Definitely.
I mean, I'd love to do that. Would love to have you back on the podcast at some point in time. Speaking of podcasts, your podcast, again, Press Release Podcast. Obviously, you guys talk football. I'm guessing you talk NBA on that podcast, too, if I know you like I think I know you.
Yeah, we talk a lot of stuff. We talk a lot of stories. Like you just kind of hinted at, I'm a big NBA guy.
Yeah.
So I'm very excited for this season. And for myself, now that I've had a little bit more time over this off season. Again, I'm a big sports guy in general. I love going to basketball games, baseball games. I'm excited. As we kind of approach September and towards the end of September, I'm excited for October baseball. So for me, I'm a sports guy. I grew up playing basketball, baseball, and football. So when it comes to kind of those big three of sports, I really enjoy them all, and I enjoy to talk about them all as well.
Hey Rob, what would you pay Josh Giddey to stay a Chicago Bull? He said he's a basketball guy. I want that man's thoughts.
He is.
Listen, in NBA, typically the market speaks. I'm curious to see, man. Because again, I mean, he's a younger guy. You know, he came into the league extremely young as well. You know, it just kind of depends on where the Bulls are going and in the direction that they're going in. You know, I believe this year will be a year that the Eastern Conference will be pretty wide open. Obviously, you have Jason Tatum coming off an Achilles injury. You have Dame Lillard, who's not in Milwaukee anymore. You have Tyrese Halliburton, who's coming off of a Achilles injury as well. You know, so if it's any time for some of the teams who want to kind of strike or really improve their team or kind of make a run in the East, I think that it would be this year.
The Press Release Podcast.
Bulls won't be doing that this year. I can tell you that.
And Alan,
listen. I mean, hey, man, Detroit. You know, it was a lot of people that didn't think that they would be where they would be at last year. You know, but they had obviously Cade. You know, he took a step and so on and so forth. But you know, I mean, listen, man. Like I said before, I think the Eastern Conference is just one of those conferences that right now you just kind of you never know. You have the Knicks and Cavs who are heavy favorites at the top of the conference this year with some injuries. Obviously, Milwaukee as well with Giannis. But as far as the rest of the conference, I think it's pretty wide open. Just as far as kind of the positioning and kind of where teams can fall throughout the course of the year.
Alan, just great stuff. Loved having you on. And just know this, too. I understand that you're from Detroit. We love Detroit. You played with the Lions last year, which is very cool. I know you played with the Rams. You, sir, will always be a Bear. Do you understand that?
I appreciate that, man. And for myself, man, I always have an extreme and immense amount of love for the city of Chicago. For myself, coming there as a pretty young guy. I think I was 24 years old when I signed there, so I feel like I kind of grew up in Chicago a little bit, and had some of the best years of my career, in Chicago. So I have a ton of love for the city, for the fans, for the Chicago Bears organization.
Alan, thank you so much. We'll talk to you soon. Thanks,
Alan.
I appreciate it. Thanks for having me.
Yep, there goes